What is up, everybody? Welcome to another, I need to get my banner up there. Welcome to another Build a Mind podcast. I'm your host, Trevor Bello, and I am, as always, super excited about what we're going to be doing today. So many of you guys have followed me for a while. Maybe you haven't, but I am a heat punk, and I bring on heat punks to talk about all things Bitcoin mining, heat reuse. It's a lot of fun. We just talked with Nico D, who built a hydronic system. We talked a little bit about my immersion system that I'm going to build. Today, we're talking to Travis Bitckle. Travis is a pleb miner who is he's in the construction industry. He's currently a manager at a construction company. He's been doing that for a while. So we kind of have some similarities there. I mean, I'm not a manager. I run my own construction company, but it's small potatoes. Either way, it doesn't matter. What I'm going to be excited, what we're going to be talking about is just his journey into Bitcoin mining and how he's integrated some of these systems into his house. And then we're going to talk about the cheese mine. And if you're curious to know what the cheese mine is, I'm going to let Travis explain it. So we're going to get into this episode. It's going to be a lot of fun, just kind of picking his brain, talking with him. And what's even cooler is that I get to go meet Travis next week. Well, next week for me, it'll be like last week for you guys. But we're going to go meet Travis in Denver in person. So it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm really looking forward to just picking his brain about what he's done. We're going to talk about a couple of things. So before we get into the podcast, there's a couple things I want to highlight. So first and foremost, I've mentioned it before. I'll mention it again. Bitcoin Mining World is doing a virtual conference. We are doing a all-day Bitcoin mining virtual conference on March 11th from 8 a.m. Central Time to like 7 p.m. Central Time. It's all day. It's going to be packed full of a lot of information. It might get a little bit nuancey for a little while, but either way, we're going to be talking with project developers, mining operators, people from the container space, people who are, building immersion systems, hydro systems. We're going to be talking about firmware developers. There's going to be a lot of really good content in that conference. It's virtual, so you can, stay at home in your PJs, in your birthday suit, whatever suits you. We're going to be having a really good conference all day. I'll be hosting some panels. I'll be hosting a lot of it. John Taylor, the media director, the creative director over at Bitcoin Mining World, will be hosting some stuff. Scott's going to be hosting some stuff. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'll have the description in the video of the show, the link to the video or the link to the conference in the video description so that you can go get your tickets. They're $21, $21. Come out to the conference or hop onto the conference. It's going to be a lot of fun, a lot of information shared. The second thing I want to tell you guys about, and I'll link this in the show notes as well, is I am going to be in Alaska for the Bitcoin Alaska event. I'll be kind of helping out with some pleb stuff, some hash rate heating, heat reuse stuff out there. It's going to be a lot of fun. I think it's in July. I want to say it's July 5th and 6th. I believe it's the 5th and 6th. Check the website just to double check me, fact check me. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be a really great event, high signal, because they're out there talking about Bitcoin mining and how they can start it. They, as in the people of Alaska, can start utilizing some of the energy resources that Alaska has in abundance and use those for Bitcoin mining and, try to teach the people, the citizens of Alaska, how that can play a pivotal role in their journey to becoming sovereign individuals. And now I think, I lived in Alaska. I lived in Ketchikan for 13 years. I think that there's a huge benefit here. And I'm really excited about that event specifically because there's so many underprivileged communities that could really use Bitcoin. And not just Bitcoin, but Bitcoin mining. And, we talk about it a lot, but I think Bitcoin mining is a perfect segue into learning how Bitcoin can play a huge role in your life as an individual, as a corporation, as a company, as a community. So that event's going to be a lot of fun. I'm really looking forward to it. And the last thing I want to tell you guys about is the mastermind community, but I'm not going to tell you about it. I'm going to let the video do
it. Join the Mastermind Club, a weekly gathering of Bitcoin miners sharing insights to help you optimize or build your mining business. Our community fosters open discussion and collaboration, connecting you with experts who can help you overcome challenges and find solutions faster. Every other week, we host the Mastermind Deep Dive, where industry leaders delve into the financial, operational, and optimization hurdles faced by miners like you. Brought to you by Bitcoin Mining World.
All right, I made it super easy. Go to the QR code down there at the bottom of your screen. Check it out. This is a perfect opportunity for anybody who's genuinely curious about Bitcoin mining and wants to dip your toes in the water. Whether you're running 3.5 kilowatts, which is one miner, or you're running 300 kilowatts, or not 300, a megawatt, 300 miners, whether you're mining on a small scale or a large scale, or deciding what you want to do, this is a perfect place to ask questions, brainstorm, ideate, learn from the community, figure out what other people are doing, what's worked for them in their geographical regions with their, certain regulatory oversights and whatnot. Figure out how they did it and then apply that to your situation. Something that I believe is integral to growing and building a successful Bitcoin mining operation, and building a successful business in any endeavor, is to have a strong community that is willing to talk to you, willing to help you along the way. So that's what this is. The mastermind community is that community to help you learn how to build a profitable and advantageous Bitcoin mining operation. So join the community. It's absolutely free to join. We meet every Friday. It's a lot of fun. I have learned a lot from it, and I'm just a regular pleb guy. So if I can learn and I can get some information out of there, so can you. All right, enough of that stuff over there. We're going to talk to Travis. What's up, Travis? You're muted.
Hey, how you doing, Trevor?
I'm doing wonderful, man.
The T's got to stick together, right? You know what I'm saying?
T-power. T-power.
That's right.
I love it. I love it,
Hey,
man.
I didn't know you were lived in Alaska for a while. I actually spent a summer in Alaska.
Oh yeah, what part?
I was in Anchorage and Eagle River, and I actually worked on a salmon seiner off Kodiak Island for only 2 weeks.
Oh yeah, that's a lot of work, man. Was it at least in like the June, July period where it's like
Yes.
not so cold?
Yeah. So the salmon seiners are only out in summer, and they're near. It's not like the crab boats or anything crazy like that. But I was a summer from college when I was up there and screwing off, and the whole crew decided to jump ship after a few weeks. So
that says something about the captain. We don't have to call out names, but that says something about the way the captain runs his ship.
Right.
Yeah, no, I lived in Alaska for 13 years, man. From like 6 to, well, maybe it wasn't 13, maybe it was more like 11, 10 years. But either way, from like 6 to 18, I lived there. And cool. It's an interesting place. It's a hard life. It's not easy. I went back, I took my wife back there last year, and I noticed a lot of things that I didn't notice in childhood. Maybe it's like prefrontal core fully developed. You can start starting to see things, and
right.
It's one reason why I'm really excited about this Bitcoin Alaska event is because there's a lot of, like I highlighted or I alluded to, is there's a lot of underprivileged, underserved communities in Alaska. A lot of these rural communities, like they don't get the funding that they need. They don't get the educational resources that they need. They don't get the, businesses that they need. And a lot of them, for the longest time, they've thrived off of either the tourism industry or the lumber industry, the fishing industry. And you're seeing some of these industries kind of start to dry up a little bit. So I think that if these communities started to learn how they could take advantage of this abundance of natural energy resources that they have in Alaska, they can start to build stronger foundations, build communities that are going to last longer and really into the 21st century. So something I'm really excited about. I'm really bullish.
Yeah, cool. That's cool, man. Super cool.
It's super cool. Well, shoot, we didn't come here to talk about community. We didn't come here to talk about, Alaska. We're here to talk about Bitcoin mining. And you are somebody, I saw your stuff on Twitter. I've seen what you're doing with the cheese mine, what you did in your home. And I got a lot of like influence, not influence, but a lot of inspiration from you, from what you're doing in the space. And I'm super excited to just have this conversation. What we do on the Build a Mind podcast, if you're not familiar, we start with an introduction to the guest to give the audience, myself included, just an idea of who you are, what you're doing, and how you got here. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, right on.
Take it wherever you want to start, brother.
Well, I guess the right place to start is in 2020, just pre-COVID. I was interested in Bitcoin all the way back to maybe like 2015, but I didn't understand it, right? Somehow I found Max Kaiser and Stacy on Kaiser Report on RT way back in 2015. And so I got to playing around with a little bit, but just whatever, not interested, just a curiosity, if anything. But then when COVID hit and they said they're going to print $1 trillion, and I was like, oh, I've heard of something. Is this right? I've heard of this thing that might help us out. And so then I really got interested. And then this is right when Michael Saylor was getting it figured out too. And I hate to suck up to him, but when I saw him speak and articulate in such a way that really truly understood in a way that I was just starting to understand as well. And I thought, all right, corporate America's here. A little disappointed that it wasn't like all of corporate America at that time, but he got it, gets it, and it's coming along, and this is working through his progression. So, in 2020 at that time, then, so I started really diving in, really trying to learn as much as I could, and then I bought a S9 off of eBay, $300 or something like that at the time, and it was profitable with just in my home at the time. I was eking out some pennies or a few sats with it, and started playing around with that. Then I figured out how to, I put some Noctua fans on it, made it a little quieter. I put it in my basement on a shelf and tied it into a flexible duct. And the flexible duct, I realized, would take out all the sound. So it was actually blowing heat right into my dining room. And that, I started to find a few other folks out there, and I'm trying to think, who to give some kudos to on the heat stuff. I found a few YouTube videos or whatever, and then I really feel bad about not giving credit where it's due for where I saw the first AC Infinity fan on an S19. Well, continued to run the S9, and then picked up an S19. I built a pseudo black box in my garage that just sucked air out of the garage space and then blew it up into the attic of the garage. I was not reusing that heat. But then, now we find the AC Infinity fans are nice and quiet. They upgrade the performance of the miner tremendously. And I figured out how to mount the miners, and if you got that picture of my furnace, you can paste it on here or whatever. But mount them vertically with a 3D printed duct, the AC Infinity fan, and now my furnace right now is 100% Bitcoin miners. So I've got 3 S19J Pros right now in the basement that are just tied into the main header hot side furnace duct in my basement, which that branches out to all the different vents throughout the house, and works pretty good. Now, the problem that I have, and I've never taken the initiative to really get better at fixing, and I'm hoping that at Undermine this next week. And by the way, I just want to stop right here and mention to you, thank you for the nudge on that, because it wasn't on my radar at all. I started thinking about it. So you gave me a little nudge as we were chatting about it. And so now I'm going. So I'm really excited about it, actually.
Yeah,
so
we're happy to have you there, man. Like, you need to be there.
Yeah. So that's fun. But anyways, been heating my house. It's been working really well. The AC Infinity fans are actually quieter than the furnace fan when it's running. So if I have all 3 of the miners running with the 3 fans going at 100%, it's still quieter than the main furnace fan running. So mostly wife approved, I'll say. Not 100%, because what I was trying to get to before is that I have failed on really dialing in the controls. And there's some other folks out there that are doing some great work that are going to be out at Undermine, and I want to pick their brain on a little bit, because my setup right now is independent of the furnace, the existing gas furnace and thermostat. So if for some reason the internet turned off or the miner stopped for whatever reason, something broke, a breaker tripped or something like that, the thermostat will still send a signal to the natural gas furnace and it'll just turn on like normal. So I have some redundancy there, but the problem that I have is that I want to run them as hard as I can and for to maximize their output and what they're doing. And I want to say like right now it's like 74 in here, so it's a little warm, and the wife's a little annoyed with that. So like I got some work to do on the controls with that, but those have been going now for 2.5 years, something like that, at least 2 seasons. We had an out of town job. I was actually out in Golden, Colorado for a year for a big job, construction project that I was on. And while I was gone, I had my 200 amp panel basically maxed out with miners running all through the house while I was gone for a whole year, actually. And I had my mother come over, and she would like water the plants, and she just check on things. But basically all last winter I had windows open in my house while I was gone, and obviously I'm watching what's going on. I'm seeing what's with the hash hitting the pool, and I can SSH into my local network and see what's going on if one would go down or needed a reboot or something like that. The worst that really happened was, once in a while we had to do a power cycle, right, to really get like a hard boot for whatever reason. And I could have my mom flip a breaker or something like that. So love you, Mom, if you're out there. Thank you. Take care of you, when things happen. But wonderful gal. So when I got back from Colorado, I had to get all these machines out of the house. Staying married is high on my priority list, and keeping my wife happy is really important. So I was looking for a place to relocate the equipment that I have here and expand to some extent. And fortunately, the local utility that we have here has a very good off-peak rate. And there's some criteria to hit to get that off-peak rate, but long story short, you need to have 25,000 kilowatt hours usage for 3 months straight, or a demand charge hit a demand of 100 kilowatts for 3 months straight, right? Mm-hmm. So somehow, I don't even know how I did this, because I came back and there's no way I'm going to repeat this, but somehow I was able to run my 200 amp panel in my house here at 155, 160 amps, which is like right there, the 80% rule for electricity. And, do your own research on your electrical sizing and make sure you do that right. But I was able to get that usage over 3 months squeeze through that 200 amp panel while we were gone. And I would not have been able to do that if we were living here. That absolutely would not have been possible, because I had S17s and T17s plugged in on 110 around the house. I had the ones in the garage that you show, the furnace ones in the basement. And was able to get on this better rate. And then thankfully we have a pretty good off-peak rate here that keeps me profitable. It keeps me still running. So like right now off-peak, I'm still running profitable with J Pros, which is cool. So I hope we can squeeze a little more life out of those guys. We'll see what happens. But
I want to stop you before you get in, because I know where you're leading. You're leading into the cheese mine. We're going to hold off on that just for a second. I want to go back to a couple of things. First thing, your story is a tale as old as time, and my audience, they've been paying attention for a little bit. They know, like, you start with one. It's generally an S9 because they're cheap as hell. You plug it in and you realize 2 things, and those 2 things are, they make a lot of noise and they make a lot of heat. And if you're a single man, it's whatever. You can just leave it running. It's fine. But you and I, we're of the same stock, man. Like you got a wife you love very much. I have a wife I love very much. And keeping them happy is a higher priority than keeping the miner running. So you got to figure out a way to kind of figure it out. And so this is what you did. And it tells you, it tells the story of, coming overcoming adversity. That adversity might come from the wife, whatever, but
Mm-hmm.
you're overcoming it, and you're figuring out a way to utilize the heat in one way, shape, or form, and making the wife happy. Now, I love the way that you kind of explained how you went about it, and just like the iteration through time. Your setup, and I'm gonna show this again. This is clean. I mean, look at the wires at the bottom, the way that everything is coiled up nicely, how it's on those bars there, sitting nice and neat, and just ducting straight up into the roof there, or the ceiling there. This is clean. A lot of the systems that I've seen before, they're not that clean. They're just kind of slap together, throw it up, see how it works, see if it works. And so I think that maybe your construction background has kind of lended itself to, the neatness of your system there. So props to you. I think that some of the things that you're going to be able to highlight in Undermine is going to be just absolutely incredible. So super happy that you're going to be there. Let's kind of go back to this electrical rate. You were able to get this electrical rate because you were gone for a couple months and you weren't using all of the electricity for your appliances. So you were able to allocate that to the miners. And this was allow you to get to that lower rate. Does this change over time? Like, do they go back and monitor you and say, oh, well, you haven't been using it for this long. You haven't been using that 200 amp threshold. So, yeah, I think that was right. So can you guys just explain the dynamics of that?
Yeah, so the tariff calls for you need to meet that criteria over a 12-month period. All right, so now technically at my house where I am right now, I need to hit 25,000 kilowatt hours of usage or 100 kilowatts of demand sometime since they switched me to that rate over the next 12 months. Now, I don't think I'm going to hit that. Now, I'm not going to call them and say, bump me off the better rate. I don't know if that's going to happen or not. But while I was setting up the new location, they bunched together like 3 months. And I see that I don't know how to describe it other than that. Like, it looks like they took 3 months while they were rearranging accounts and stuff. And I've got like 3 months shown as all 1 month, right? So like, I don't know if that bought me a few more months here at my house, but actually, this is a milestone for me tonight because the new effective rate at the cheese mine starts tomorrow. So I'm super stoked about that because it's going to change how I'm running everything. The top tier machines that I have right now are going to be able to run full time now, and I'm excited about that. But the tariff isn't and the rate structure isn't perfect. On peak I'm closer to around 10 cents, which still isn't bad, but it's not profitable J Pro-ish now anymore. So like, you need to have a latest generation machine to make that work. But I'm not really concerned about it at the house anymore. I mean, for my furnace setup, that's going to stay put. Even if they fall and they're not profitable anymore, I'm still going to use them as a furnace.
Mining for heat, baby.
That's right, 100%.
Yep.
So those are going to stay. I'm not going to disturb those. The ones in the garage, the picture that you had shown, those may end up migrating eventually to the other mine if they change my rate here, if it ends up being different. But I hope I can keep that here, or it sticks around for a while, because then I have a little bit more capacity, but to deploy machines. But I don't know. I mean, like, we don't know how this is going to work. I don't know how it's going to work. We're taking risks here. We have no idea where difficulty is going to be. Maybe, who knows, in a year, energy prices writ large with natural gas or whatever goes crazy, and suddenly, my electric bill goes way up. But I went through and I looked historically at the rate increases over the last 10 years. And, they really haven't moved a ton, even dropped down and dropped a little bit here and there. But overall, I mean, it's been a pretty steady increase, and, we'll see what happens. I mean, my philosophy with this is to miner cost average, right? I think that, during the last cycle, a lot of, 2020-ish timeframe, when everything started taking off, I think there were a lot of folks out there, minds out there, that they leveraged to the hilt and borrowed tons of fiat to fund their operation, and then they got absolutely wrecked. And my philosophy is the same as, for stacking Bitcoin, just dollar cost average, right? So every once in a while, I'm setting aside a little bit to maybe upgrade my infrastructure and try to rotate in some newer equipment so that, even if things go like totally haywire, I'm pretty confident some of these later gen machines will still be able to run. So I'll still be able to mine and still run a few machines, but I think you got to get into this habit of kind of rotating the stock, so to speak. But I ended up finding a bunch of out in Denver when I was out there for work. I found a pallet of S17s and T17s that they were like all dusty in the corner, and then we started building space heaters out of those. We put the 3D printed duct on those. I think I sent you some pictures of those, and then made some of my friends in Denver. Our kids who went to school with this other girl, we made friends with some parents there, and I'm like, here's a heater, try this out. And he's still running it. Yeah. So this is the superpower of the T17 S17. The APW9 power supply can run just plugged into 120, just like the APW3. So like most people don't realize that. And Zach Baumstow was the one who kind of, made me aware of that and others aware of that you can use that power supply to plug into 120. But now we have so he's kind of obsoleted the Loki and the APW9s by, the APW12 hack that we were discussing earlier before we started. So like now you have options. You got the APW3 to run on 120. You got the APW9, which can run on 120, and the APW12, which is all your J Pro generation machines. Mm-hmm. So we have a lot of options now to run on 120 versus 4 years ago. And that's pretty cool. So yeah, the superpower of the S17s and the T17s were that they had that power supply that could run on 120. And I think a lot of people just haven't realized that or didn't know that. You just have to make sure that, you have to make sure you have to run an aftermarket firmware so that you can dial it down and underclock it, right? On stock firmware, you're going to overwork the circuit that you're plugging in on 110.
So let me get this straight. You can run it off of 120 or 220, just depending on firmware. You have to underclock it or overclock. Okay, I wasn't aware of that. Interesting. Yeah, so I'm not sure about the modification that I've done because we were talking offline, but for the audience, I modified an APW12 which comes stock on the S19s, and I think it comes on the S21s as well. But I modified that with I modified the brownout detectors with like little 1 ohm resistors. I soldered those on there, and now it runs on 120. And I haven't tested it yet, but in my mind, I'm like, does this also work on 220? Does the same?
Yeah, I think it will. I think it will. Yes, I think it will, because you've just lowered the way that I understand that this modification works is that that brownout detector is a low voltage cutoff, right? So now you've pulled that low voltage cutoff, you've tricked it, right, with that resistor. So now it's got to be probably, I don't know how Zach calculated this. I mean, he's the engineer, right? And he's the prodigy there. But that trigger to shut it off is now lowered, right? So yes, I believe that it's no problem, that you should be able to run it on 220, 120, whatever, and it'll just work.
I'm gonna test it. Just to make sure, because I've got my father-in-law's running he's got an S19 out there at his house, and it's all stock configuration. So I'll probably just go out there and plug it in and see if it works. And if it works, I'll be like, yes.
Yeah, I think it will. I don't think there's any reason. So like the whole thing is designed for that higher voltage, and it's set up for that originally. I don't think you're changing anything on the top end. So have at it.
And it's really cool, guys. I like the Loki board. Like it's great. Those Loki boards are awesome. But I'm gonna be honest, I probably won't buy another Loki board just simply because it's like $50 for the Loki board plus shipping. And then you have to get the APW3 and you have to modify that. Or you get, for $3, you get like 100 of these resistors.
Yeah.
For another $5, you get a Y splitter cable and a little outlet that you wire onto it. I could grab it over there, but I'm not going to. And so you're like $25 in, and you just modify the stock power.
Yeah, you don't need to buy anything else.
You don't need to
right?
buy anything else. So I mean, I love Zach. I love what he's doing.
Yeah,
but you're completely correct. He's
he
kind of
even said when we talked about this, he even said he's like, "Oh, I'm murdering the Loki board here." So I mean, good on him. Like, what a generous guy. I just, he's worked really hard for what we're doing as the pleb miners, right, to try to decentralize hash rate and make this happen, right? And I love the bit axes and stuff like that, but like, it's kind of a toy, you know what I mean? It's just a toy,
Anybody who tells you that it's not a toy is just bullshit. I mean, even the solo Satoshi guys who sell these things will tell you it's a toy. The difference being that it enables hash rate decentralization. I mean, there is that aspect to it, and the more of these things that we deploy, like, there is these higher chances of people getting their own blocks, which it's going to change people's lives. They learn about mining. There are different aspects to it, but it is overall, it's a toy. It's a lottery miner. You're not gonna.
Well, there's an orange pill effect to those things too, right? If they're sitting on your cubicle office desk, hey man, what's that? And then you haven't. That's right. It's pretty cool.
Do you see this one that I have here? This is my favorite one. So this is the white paper edition.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
I'm actually gonna pull it.
Yeah, let me see that thing once.
Dude, this thing is sick. So it's this is from X-Tech Solutions. This one is, so it's all white. You see the white PCB there.
Oh, cool, man.
It's actually got the introduction to the white paper engraved on the back.
That's perfect for the orange pill machine, right? Because you
just pull this off. You're like, read this real fast, and then look at my Bitcoin miner. So this thing's pretty sweet. I love what X-Tech did with the white PCB and like the white fan cover and the white screen case. It's pretty cool.
It's kind of got like a 2001 Space Odyssey vibe.
Yeah, exactly. Here, let me. Yeah, no, it's pretty cool. I mean, I think the bit axes are a fun project, fun toy to play around with. It's a lot easier to modify and play around with, like immersion or hydro, when it's like a 1-chip 6-inch little PCB board versus getting a miner that's $4,000, $8,000, and like, oh, I don't know if this is going to work. Am I going to break the miner? Is it going to perform properly? So it is a great introduction into like playing with some of these systems. So I wanted to caveat that. I think we kind of went on a little tangent there.
Yeah, sorry about that.
It's all good. It's all good. No, so like I've always said on this podcast is, I want people to get a better understanding of how mining works so that they can learn and start to play around with it and get some of that sovereignty themselves. You kind of alluded to it. You talked about it a little bit earlier, is just this idea of miner cost averaging. I stack sats every day because my miners are constantly running. I heat the studio, which now I don't pay for heat in a sense, like I'm getting paid to heat. And also, I think it was Tyler Stevens put out something, an S9 that stacked so many sats in 2017, extrapolate that out to 2025, and those sats are worth exponentially more than what they were at the time. So if you're a stack and hold kind of guy, if you're a hodler, then really, I mean, if you kind of like look at today's value of the Bitcoin stacked versus the amount of electricity you paid for at the time that they were stacked, I think that grows exponentially.
Yes. So what's crazy, like thinking about that, is the first S19 I got, and this is a halving ago. I think I had a day where it earned like 300,000 sats, right? On one S19. Now the whole fleet right now isn't pulling in 300,000 sats. You know what I mean? Yeah. So like, it was a lucky day or whatever, but I gotta give a lot of credit to Tyler too. I'm glad you mentioned him. I'm so proud of what they're doing out in Denver. And I met Tyler at the Denver Bit Devs meetup, and I brought in a couple of my little, New board builds and shared it with those guys. And, and he was there trying to learn. And like, now he's a leader there.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm really happy to be going back out to see him again.
Dude, like the community, this community of like-minded individuals, what we call the heat punks, is incredible. What we're all doing, trying to move this movement forward, is just it's kind of inspiring if you look at it from the outside. But when you're in it, I mean, I am neck deep in this, and I am having conversations like this, like the one we're having right now with all of these guys. And the amount of innovations, the amount of work that these people are putting in, and the amount of knowledge that is being shared around is absolutely incredible. You look at any other industry, and I'm not very knowledgeable on it, but from the outside looking into all these other industries, you don't see this kind of collaboration.
Yeah, no, it's just electric right now. It's
exactly
electric. Yeah, and I love it. So I've been working really hard, trying to take care of the family and keep all the balls in the air. But I'm really excited to go out and see everybody and be part of Undermine and be there. And again, I'll just give you props. Thanks for the nudge on that.
You needed it. You needed it.
I know. Yeah.
It was funny because I was talking with Antoine today in one of our groups, and I think you just got added to the group. He's like, I just convinced Travis to go out to the Undermine. I'm like, what are you talking about? I convinced Travis a week ago.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it. All right, man. Let's we got about 24 minutes left. I want to highlight this journey from home mining to small scale industrial mining, because you're not a large industrial mine, but you are an industrial mine in a sense. So tell us what the cheese mine is. Tell us how you you went from home mining to small scale industrial mining. What's the size of it and what does it look like? I know that you're doing some heat reuse there, so we'll kind of get into the environment that it's in as well.
Sure. So when I got back from Colorado, I had all these machines running in the house, had to get them out, had to figure something out. So immediately what I had here had to be turned off and taken offline so we could live here again. Right. So what I was looking for, and it was hard to find a place, I was looking for a small commercial place nearby home that could utilize the heat. Like that was the selling point. I'm trying to keep my OpEx costs down. I looked into renting hobby shop spaces and trying to, but the thing is, I don't need a ton of square footage. I just need the power infrastructure. So there was criteria. I needed to have a commercial industrial facility that had some good power infrastructure, a place that could utilize the heat, so I was trying to mix all this together and then find, keep my costs down as much as possible. And so it's really difficult to try to find a place like that and explain what you're doing to somebody who has no idea about this. I mean, everybody just thinks you're crazy. I don't get it. I don't get what you're doing. What do you mean you can heat my place? And why would you do that? Doesn't make any sense. Get the fuck out of here. I don't know how many different doors got, I don't want to say slammed in my face.
Politely closed.
Yeah. I had actually one spot that I was cultivating before I even got back, and I was still in Denver because I knew that I was going to have to figure out what to do. And I flew back here and I had a meeting. I brought in one of those S17s and so I could plug it in and show them what it sounded like. And I said, and I think the facility was just a little too big. It was like an industrial paint shop. And he's like, I get it. If you have 100 kilowatts, and I give him all the numbers, so let's say I have 100 kilowatts, that's roughly 350,000 BTUs of constant heat, right? About 3.41 BTUs per watt, right? So, he's like, well, we got a 20,000 CFM heat, HVAC unit here that's blowing. It's going to be like pissing in the wind, So finding the right spot that was the perfect fit was difficult. So they just didn't see the benefit. They didn't understand that, like this heat isn't going to isn't going to lower my heating costs. They didn't buy into that. They had plenty of space, they had the power there, but it's like, why bother? They didn't. And so asking around, trying to find all these, look through local places. Well, I finally, and I didn't want to like get really into the local politics. So I live in a small town. I called the village administrator, and he actually was our kids' soccer coach. And I thought, well, if anybody knows a lot of people and what might be a good fit, this guy will know, right? So, and he was a good, friendly guy. He was a good coach for our kids. And he's like, well, yeah, we got I won't say his name, but he's got an old cheese plant that he's, maybe that would be a good. I'll get you connected with him. And so I called him up. We talked a few times, and by this time I had been I had failed enough where I wasn't overexcited, right? And it turns out that this guy actually just lives down the road from me. He's almost my neighbor. He lives 2 blocks away from me, the owner of this building. And so I invited him over. Here, have a beer. Look, this is what I'm doing. You see, this is how it works. And he was able to like put his hands on it and see how it worked. Well, this particular building was a former cheese plant that he owns. So 120 years old or something like that, old brick building, tile floors, cinder block.
Cold as balls.
Cold as balls right now because, the way that the building has been used for the last 20 years is just as hobby shop, storage, and he was having a real problem in the springtime when it started to warm up and there was humidity in the air, like the whole place would just sweat. It was like an ice cube with condensation on it. And then it was like moldy and kind of gross. And, so he had a kind of a problem there that way. And so we went and took a look at the building, and this particular building is 7,000 square feet. So like, this is like almost sized perfectly for the amount of machines that I have and the BTUs that I have to heat, right? So it was kind of a good fit there where I didn't have like a big giant CapEx where I got to buy, another 50 kilowatts of machines to heat the place. So I had the equipment basically to start it. I just want to give, before I forget, I want to give some props to Jeff Hotz, who's a miner down in Iowa, because while I was trying to get this all together, I needed to figure out how to get to this 100 kilowatt demand charge to get on the lower rate. And he had some old M31s and some M30s. And he said, you can just take them, man. Just come get them. And Eric Wilson from Wilson Mining met me out at Jeff's mine, and he gave me the machines. And right now they're running off peak only. And I think I'll be able to run them. And his only ask was just mine them or give them away to somebody who wants to learn. And, that's all I ask. And so like, it would, I wouldn't be able to be doing this without people like Jeff, who's helped me out. So I just had to give him a little shout out while I remembered there.
Absolutely.
But, so I ended up, the owner of the cheese plant said, yeah, all right, man, let's give it a try. Well, that particular facility has 800 amp service. So three-phase 800 amp service. So like that was one of the key features I needed to make this work. However, it's not perfectly ideal because each leg of the three-phase is not 277 volt. It was 120 volt, right? So in order to make this work, I needed a step up transformer. And so I had to find a transformer when I got back. Once I had the place and a commitment that we could move forward with it with him, then I had to find a transformer. I found electrical equipment, that warehouse or storehouse that does refurbished equipment, and they had a transformer for me. So it was a 150 kVA transformer. So really, I'm only able to utilize about half of that 800 amp service that's coming in. So like the rest of the building, there's a little apartment on the front of the building. There's some different hobby shops and stuff like that. They still need to have power. So right now, the way that I have this built is, I'm good for 150 kilowatts or about 45 machines, something like that in that neighborhood. So got the transformer. Fortunately, some friends that I work with in my company, we have electricians. So I was able to cultivate my electrician buddy to come and give me a hand, help me with the sizing. And I would just say that, like, you know, a lot of the questions that I've gotten on Twitter about my furnace setup or electrical stuff, and like, you need to make sure your electrical size properly. I mean, the number one risk, if there is a risk, is an undersized wire and you melt a wire, and that's where it's going to start a fire. So one of the tools that I found that was very helpful trying to build the infrastructure for the cheese mine was the old AI robot was really good. It's like, okay, if I have 3 legs of 120 at 400 amps, what size transformer do I need to, you know, do X, Y, Z, and it would do all the math. And then I had my electrician friend, like, is this right? You know, is this, yep, that's right. This is the wire size you need. This is what you got to do. And so we put there was a switch panel, an old switch panel in the cheese mine that, you know, all the big breakers are. So I had to buy a breaker for it. And the breaker was like $2,000. It was an expensive breaker. Some disconnects, so like I have the breaker, I have a disconnect where in the electrical room where the switch panel is. So, you know, if the landlord wanted to shut me off, he could just, you know, turn me off. He felt inclined to do so. But then I put also a local disconnect right in where the miners are. If something goes haywire, I can just, you know, hit the main switch or whatever and turn everything off. So the building has 800 amp service, but what I didn't know and I didn't realize is that the 3 transformers on the pole were only 15 kVA transformers. So they're drastically undersized for the service that the building has. And so what happened was I was running at, like, you know, 100 kilowatts, 85 kilowatts, something like that. And we lost one of the transformers and it went down. So, like, we only had 2 legs of power, and I was worried that I was like that was going to damage equipment, right?
Yeah.
Because, like, you know, like some of the machines are going to get the brownout detectors we were talking about earlier on the J Pros and the APW12s, right? They worked, I think, right? And they turned off because, like, you lost a leg or whatever. And because what happened downstream of my 150 kVA transformers, like 2 legs were good, but then 1 leg was only like 150 volts or something like that, right? Because it's not to get in the weeds too much on the electric, it was like a 208 Delta transformer, and so it, like, some funny stuff happens downstream, right? So fortunately, I didn't lose any machines, but the power company was like, hey, you know, I called you and I told you what my usage was going to be, and there's no issue with that. What probably happened and what they suspect happened is that building just had no usage for like the last 30 years. And so when it came time to change the transformers, whenever it was, they put smaller ones on 30 years ago, whatever, because that building just never used that amount of power. When the power company came in and they changed the transformers on the pole, they came in and looked at at the internals of where the wires come in and where it ties into the meter and stuff. And he's like, oh, yeah, these all actually look all good. You know, everything's greased good. Nothing's corroded. And so I think the building has got good infrastructure, and I can even, you know, I can add some more at some point if I want to take some more, because I don't think the building owner is using that other 400 amps right now. You know, he's just not, you know, so I could add some capacity, but I'd have to do it in a different way. I'd have to run them on 2 legs of 120 to make 240, just like you would plug in your dryer or your electric stove or something like that. But speaking of stoves, one of the things that I told my lovely wife, you know, if I step back a couple of years here, is like, you know, I think we should get a gas range. I think a gas stove would be really nice. You know, you boil water faster, cooks better, you know. I was able to I don't want to say swindle her into an upgrade to open up 40 more amps on my panel, you know. So
just you know, casually had to throw that out there. Opened up 40 more amps because, you know, we got a gas stove. Everybody wants a gas stove. Jealous.
That's right.
No, this is great. I mean, I love the story of just really, like, you had a need for finding this right. I mean, I'll call it a needle in a haystack, man. Finding the right sized building, the right size electrical infrastructure, and maybe it was a little weird. You had to do a couple things to get it to work for you, but also there's that added piece of getting the owner like convinced about what you're doing. And it's funny that they're just down the road from you. Do you have plans in the future to try to scale up to maybe another site, another place?
Yeah. So one of the other things that, I mean, the whole idea is like, this is an example. I wanted to make it as a visible example of how you could heat a small commercial space, and be able to bring people there and show people. So the tenant that's right next to me in the bay next to me. So like where the mine is kind of in the middle of the building. It's like a little pump, the well pump room. It's only like 8 feet wide. Right. And it's maybe 25, 30, maybe 30 feet deep, something like that. And the guy who's the tenant right next to me, he's got like his little workshop where he works on his trucks, hobby shop or whatever. And I've got 2 8-inch AC Infinity fans that are blowing through insulated duct into his space. And in the back, in his back room, it used to be like a cooler or something. So it was an insulated room. And he said, well, it's 74 back there and it's 68 up front. So he hasn't run his unit heater in his space at all this winter. The other main large space, that guy hasn't run his unit heater at all. And then even where the switch panel is, and the owner's got a small bay where he keeps his little tractor and stuff like that. I mean, that's a lot warmer now too. So the whole building, the whole core of the building's warmer, and he's happy as shit. He's like, this building hasn't been this warm in the middle of winter in 20 years. He's flat out said it. So like I think that like step one, the goal was to get him bought in and the tenants bought in. So if I bring somebody there and say, hey, tell us how it's going and what do you think of this? And I know they're going to be super fans.
Yeah, you got that personal touch and like that experience of people who are living it, breathing it every day. They're experiencing it, and they can tell others like, yeah, this actually is really nice. It's a great environment,
One of the other things that I wanted to do too, and the owner has been very helpful. It's like my entrance was kind of like all mossy and gravelly, kind of crappy. And he's like, and one of the other tenant, his door enters right there too. It's like kind of like a little narrow space. I think I'm going to pour a slab. So he actually poured a concrete slab in there for us, just to make it a little nicer. So he's investing a little in the building too, which was good. I said, hey, how about, do you mind, can we pour some PEX in? If I I'll buy the PEX, let's pour it in. And I want to try a hydro machine and do snow melt and, keep that slab warm. It's not very big. It's only like 130 square feet, 140 square feet. It's pretty small. And I want to try a hydro machine and do snow melt with that. So like the whole demonstration would be complete if I can get that done. And we chatted a little bit about that too. Now, Cade's going to be out at the Undermine as well. So I want to hit him up too. And I've been chatting with him a little bit on Twitter.
You know who else you should hit up about this? Because you're talking about hydro, and we talked a little bit about trying to get you a hydro machine. Dude, do you have any extra S19s lying around?
I mean, I got them. Yeah, I mean, they're running, but I got them.
You should try the cryo block. I haven't.
Sure.
I haven't gotten mine set up yet, but this seems like a perfect use case to get a cryo block set up and just pump that water through the concrete PEX tubing.
So that's the hybrid system, right? Where it's air and water.
But you don't have to use the air. So the way that it does it, it uses the air, the onboard air, the fans from the miner, and it also utilizes a hydro block that sits in lieu of that monolithic.
The monolithic is replaced with the hydro block. That's not a bad idea, and that would be a cheap and simple way to get that started. So I mean, I guess all I need is a pump, an expansion tank, an air vent, and then fill it up and turn it on, right? I mean,
yeah, that's from my basic understanding. I haven't done it yet, but yeah, I mean, I was just, as you were telling that story, I was thinking about that. Is that like this might be a cheaper just alternative for trying to figure it out with a
Sure.
unit that you already have versus going out and spending the money on the hydro unit, which
Sure.
are expensive.
Yeah, and I'm trying to I'd like to learn about them. I know that most of them are 3-phase power, which is fine. I have 3-phase where I'm at. But talking with Cade, and I don't want to put words in his mouth, I'll probably butcher, so this is just what I remember from chatting with him, is that if I've only got 120 square feet of concrete to heat, once that warms up, that's like, I need more heat sink than that. So I would need a dry cooler and the radiator and fans in addition to be able to keep that machine running, or it's not enough heat sink even, which blows my mind, that like how much snow melt you can do. And I would love to I'd love to get with a contractor and build a heated driveway and say, hey, you're going to do a heated driveway anyways. Let's try it. Let's try it this way. And, if it doesn't work, you just put in your regular gas boiler or whatever. But I think that if we can do this proof of concept, well, Cade's already done it. He's already got it happening. But my experience with the cheese mine is like, I have to be able to take somebody by the hand and say, look, see,
touch it.
This is touch it. That's right. Yeah. Otherwise they're not going to believe you, that it's going to work, so I don't know. The one problem, it would be a lot of fun to just get with, a fancy house builder that does these heated driveways and do that. And there's a couple different ways you could do it. I mean, I don't know. I was just spitballing ideas. You could say all right, house owner, I'll just take care of everything. And normally if you had this running, it costs you whatever, $400 a month to melt your driveway. Well, you just pay me $100 a month and I'll take care of it. And you don't have to do anything, and then I can just operate that. Now, the problem that I see with this, and this gets into the bigger electrical issue, is that power companies don't want to have more than 1 meter at a location. Right. So you have this problem where if I want to, you want to get somebody on this better rate or something like that. I mean, this is going to take basically an act of Congress here. And I'd like to team up with the other folks in my area, because we have the Public Service Commission here, and to be able to get some flexibility. Because just imagine this. Okay, I got the cheese mine, it's 150 kilowatts. I got, maybe I replicate that a couple of times, or let's say I replicate it and I got a megawatt, but it's decentralized, right? Hey, power company, I can demand response for you a megawatt, right? But it's decentralized. So you're going to have to work with me on the power rates, and you're going to have to work with me on how this works, but I'll be able to turn off a megawatt or give you back a megawatt whenever you want it, right? This is that strengthening of the grid. This is, some of these, and they just, all of those bureaucrats and all that, they're just not there yet. But I think we got to get together, and I got to find the other miners that are in Wisconsin, and we got to get together and form a lobbying group and
you got to get those grid operators too. You got to get the people who have their finger on the pulse of how stabilizing a grid works, so that they can speak with these representatives. Because from what I understand, I mean, these representatives, they don't know. And unless you can give them a convincing argument, they're not going to go to bat for you. So if you can, the grid operators are the ones that are dealing with managing this load, from this location, and turning on these, generators that help to supply more power. So it's creating this lobby of miners, but also grid operators, so that you can kind of combine forces and then go to your congressman and say, hey, I need this.
Right. Yeah. And one of the things I didn't really elaborate on with my industrial rate, it's a demand. It's called a response rewards program. Right. And 300 hours a year, I'll get a demand response call, and it's like a time of use plan where you have on peak, off peak rates, but then there's a third rate structure that's critical peak, right? I can run through that critical peak if I want to, but it's a very high rate, right? So it's like 45 cents a kilowatt hour. So, I don't want to do that. So what they do is I get a text, I get an email, I get a phone call, and from 4 to 7 today, we're on critical peak and I can power down my machines, right? And I can go through they've got a nice interface where I can see my demand and I can look at the chart. I'm like a perfect responder, so we're already building this evidence to say, like, look, I'm doing this with 100, 150 kilowatts. We can do it with a megawatt. Is that useful to you? Yeah, maybe it is. And, maybe you should help us achieve some more things here, and we can grow this, and it'll strengthen the grid.
Yeah, this is something that, I mean, on a much smaller, but like smaller and larger at the same time, something that Nicholas Druin is working on with Constellation Heating Solutions is, this idea of, let's say you've got a community and you've got, I don't know, 100 different people running these water heater, pool heater combos.
Right.
And, let's say they're 10 kilowatts a piece, 100 of these, there's your megawatt, boom.
Yep.
There's your full megawatt. If you were able to create some sort of system that powers down at high peak demand hours, that powers these systems down and sends that megawatt back to the grid.
Yes.
I mean, that's huge. And
yeah,
it's something that he's working on, something that, you're kind of working on in your area. It's going to be interesting, projecting out into the future. Throw the heat reuse off to the side for a second. It's going to be very interesting seeing the way that grid operators are able to maintain and stabilize grids, for higher production, higher output, and
greater revenue. They're making more money off of us.
Exactly.
They're making more money off of us. So
and also greater revenue because they're making more money, but they're also allowed, because they're like, it's so integrated so deeply, the owners of the homes and the businesses, their rates will actually get cut back.
Yes.
So,
they should go down. Yep.
They should go down. Absolutely. So you've got people who are saving money. The business operators are saving money. The grid operators are making more money and building out stronger, more reliable grids.
They're making money off of the kilowatts that I'm buying. But not only that, if we were able to have a reasonably large demand response, that should save some of their operating expense on their end too. Like, they don't have to spin up their nat gas, cogen plants as much, right? And it saves some costs both ways for them.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's just interesting. We have to build it though. And that's one thing that I'm super bullish on, is just the amount of people like yourselves who are going out and advocating for our industry and saying, hey, this is a perfect symbiotic relationship between our industry and yours. So beautiful, man. Well, hey, I've got a couple more things before we wrap it up. I do want to say thank you so much for coming on the show and just telling us your story. It's a beautiful story of just perseverance and not giving up. I think a lot of people, they get a little bit scared when they think about, how am I going to do this? And, if you just give it a shot, you just keep pushing and keep trying, you're going to figure it out. So it's absolutely beautiful. Nice work. We appreciate what you're doing in the space. And I'm really excited to meet you in person, man. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Likewise. And I appreciate your enthusiasm, and you've been doing good too, buddy. I'm busy with life right now. There's so many podcasts and so much information out there. It's like, now I'm working closer to home, and I used to have a 45-minute commute every morning. Right. Yeah. And that was like my time where I could just, that's why I'm the Bitcoiner I am today, because I was able to just sit and listen and absorb stuff. Right now, it's like, I don't have the time anymore, but I'm going to keep doing it, man. I'm going to see what happens. We'll see what happens. And I appreciate what you're saying. I hope my wife watches this and she understands that, it's for something, it's for our future, and, it's for everybody's future. Right.
Yeah, it's beautiful this is something that I've noticed in my life. It's beautiful to have a passion that is beneficial to your family, to your community, to the people that you serve. It's one thing to have a passion and do something that doesn't really serve anyone else. But when it starts to serve the people in your life, and the people in your life notice, like that makes it all the more worthwhile. I absolutely love what this industry has done for me. The Pleb heat reuse space has done for me. And, props to the wives, man. Whether
Yeah,
your
that's
wife
right.
is listening, my wife's not
Hell
listening.
yeah.
I know she's not listening, but props to the
Yeah.
wives for
Yeah.
putting up with our shit. You know?
Yeah, 100%, man. 100%. So
All right, Travis. So
cool.
check it out. On this podcast, I ask everybody who's new here, I ask them one question. And if you listened to the podcast before, you know what I'm going to ask. If you haven't, it's going to be a, slap in the face. But we're going to get into the philosophical. We're going to get a little heady here. What does Bitcoin mean to you?
Well, I see it as it's just
take your time. Formulate.
It's the most American thing that I can think of, right? Nothing else represents property rights and free speech like Bitcoin. Nothing. So it's the most American thing that I know of. So I'm not. I'm actually a political science graduate. I went to school for political science. Throw that in the trash, right? But I'm very disconnected. I don't think we can, as Saifedean would say, you can't vote harder, to solve your problems. But as far as American values go, Bitcoin is the most American thing there is, right? So I dig on that, man.
Ooh, I'm not gonna lie, Travis. You just gave me chills. I've heard that idea before, but the way that you framed it, you're right. You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
It is the most American thing that we have that exists today. I think if the founder fathers are looking down on us today, they're looking at the Bitcoin industry and they're going, that has legs.
Yeah, man. Yeah, man. This is the tool that we need to take things to the next level, to keep freedom alive. What is I hate to quote other guys out there, but what does Odell say? You can't have freedom without privacy, and you can't have wealth without freedom. Something like that, right?
Yeah.
It's something along those lines. And so I subscribe to those kinds of things. And if we build this stuff and I want to see as many pleb miners out there, just like what Zach's done. He's trying to encourage this thing, and it's going to happen. It will happen. There's an arbitrage for those who have high energy costs, or who's running on propane or something out in the country, and maybe their electric rate is a little more, conducive. There's going to be every place. Like, I'm waiting for the ASIC powered, tea kettle and toaster, and wherever you need any kind of heat anywhere, right? That's what I want to see. I will say I don't know. Have you talked to anybody who's run that new Canaan home miner that's like 30 terahash? No, that looks like the polished, nice thing that, it's efficient, it's quiet. I haven't heard any reviews on it yet. Now, I think the price point's a little high yet. I'd rather build something that and maybe I'm sorry I'm getting on a tangent here. I'd rather build something myself for a lot less and a better value than buy that yet. But that looks like what we need, right? That's the thing that we need. If everybody starts heating with those kinds of things, that's going to happen real fast.
Something I want to highlight here is that you now have a major manufacturer. You got the three big brands. You got Canaan, you got MicroBT, you got Bitmain. You now have a major manufacturer of ASIC chips and mining equipment building something for heat reuse.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And what that does is it sends a signal through the market that, hey, there is money to be made here. And when Bitmain and Canaan and all these miners, all of a sudden they realize maybe efficiency isn't the goal, maybe heat reuse is the goal, or a goal. And now, instead of optimizing for higher efficiency, we optimize for higher temperatures. And that is when we see the tea kettle. That is when we see boiling water. That is when we see spinning turbines. 100%. That is when we see energy generation from Bitcoin mining. And that is when the universe expands. Like, we're seeing the step in the right direction with this new Canaan miner. But once we have chips that can boil water and spin turbines, that is when the universe just...
Yeah, right on, man. I'm with you 100%.
Yeah, awesome. Well, Shoot, man. Appreciate your time today. We're gonna cut it there.
Yeah, cool. And I look forward to seeing you out at Undermine next week. And thanks again for the nudge. So I'll give you the props on that, and I'm making it happen. So Absolutely. It actually worked out. I'm actually going to Idaho for a work thing, and then from Idaho I'll be flying right to Denver. So
there you go. Boom.
Cool.
I'm glad it worked out, man. I'm happy. We got to get everybody in that room. I guess it's sold out. I guess the space sold out. So you know, everybody is gonna be hearing this in the future. But you know, you guys missed out. Sorry.
Yeah. Right on.
All right, Travis. We will see you in Denver, guys. This has been the Build a Mind podcast. If you guys enjoyed this, you know what to do. Like, share, subscribe. We will see you on the next episode of the Build a Mind podcast. Peace out.